In today's photo deconstruction, I'm going to show you how I use gels and a specialty creative filter for really eye-catching results. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here. I have been on a creative filter kick. I've been using so many creative filters in my work. Often it's star filters or black pro mists. And today I want to show you how I use another specialty filter called a Centerfield split diopter. This actually goes by a couple different names depending on the brand. For example, Tiffin will call it a slit diopter or a letterbox diopter. Other ones will call it Centerfield split. So what does this mean? Fundamentally, it's one of those filters that you screw into the front of your lens, and then on either side there's a little bit of what looks like a magnifying glass with an empty space in the middle. Now, a diopter I used in the past when I was trying to shoot close-up photography. It's basically a magnifying glass. In cinematography, it's often used to extend the depth of field in an image, but for our purposes, it's purely for creativity. What this filter does is it blurs the edges of the frame but allows you to keep the center sharp. And when you have reflective surfaces, like reflective sequins or a light source in the scene, it creates this beautiful bokeh. And so I'm going to take you behind the scenes now to show you how I created this beautiful fashion image. So the streaks and blurs that you see, well, those are a result of the specialty filter, and I've linked to this filter in the description below. Now, this image was actually created at one of my fashion intensive workshops that was hosted in Milan. I shot last year and partnered up with photographer Chris Knight for a 2-day workshop where we shot at incredible locations. We shot at a rotunda in an absolutely stunning palace. And then we also spent a little time in the studio. All right, so I'd like to show you a little bit of the lighting, and then I'll show you what was captured in camera versus what was achieved in post. All right, so this is the studio setup. And you can see that we're using a total of 4 lights. So let's begin with light number 1. The first light on the left-hand side is the Westcott optical spot. And I use this to create a slice of light on the subject, basically to just light her face and her torso. Now you may know that this is a modifier that is close to my heart because it's the Westcott optical spot by Lindsay Adler. I designed this in conjunction with Westcott because I love the control that it creates. It's a modifier with a lens in the front, and then you can put different shapes in it to project on the background or on your subject. And here I was simply using the leaves. There's these little slices built into the modifier itself, so I could create just a slice of light on the face and the upper part of her torso. So that is light number 1. Then you can see there's 2 more lights acting as rim lights / side lights. They're strip softboxes, and these strip softboxes had grids to control the spill of the light in the scene, but more importantly, they had magenta gels. I decided that I wanted a futuristic color palette here because my subject was in futuristic clothing, right? We went with something silver, kind of alien-esque, and so I knew that the silver would be great to have different colors reflecting off of it. So immediately I thought that I needed to use gels. So we have 2 magenta gels in those strips. But then the front of her would basically just have a spotlight on her face, 2 rim lights, and then everything else would fall to shadow. And so I wanted to add a fill light that would not only give detail to the shadows, but also add a little bit of color. And that is where our 4th light comes into play. It is a softbox, a 3x4 foot with a blue gel. And you will be able to see this as we look at the final shot. Now, before we pop over to that final shot again, let's take a look at the gear. I was using the Canon R5, the Canon RF 24-105 lens. I was shooting at 5.6 and ISO 200. The Canon 24-105 is my go-to in-studio lens, particularly when I am shooting fashion setups, full length, because it gives me a lot of range. I can vary from a full-length shot all the way to a head and shoulders shot using a single lens. Okay, so let's look at the final image here. You can actually see everything that I was just talking about, right? So you see that hard light on her face that illuminates just from the top of her forehead down to her chest. That's the optical spot. Then you can see the 2 magenta lights coming in from the left and the right. It wraps around the side of her face, and thankfully the light blonde hair also picked up that color. And then finally you can see that 3x4 foot with the blue gel filling in the front, which gives that nice slice of blue down the middle. Also, I did not have a grid on that softbox, so you can see that a lot of that blue light from the fill light is also spilling onto the white cyc wall. And so the background now appears blue as well. For this shot, I was also shooting a tungsten white balance. What it did is it took all of the colors in the scene and it cooled them down even more, which is why her skin appears almost porcelain pure white. is I got rid of any of the warmth in the image already by shooting a cooler white balance. So this is the final shot, but let's take a look at what was captured in camera. All right, so this is looking a little different already. It's looking a little bit hazy. It's looking a little bit flat. This was what was captured in camera. And the reason is I was shooting in the scene, but there was a beautiful little vignette by the window with an old staircase, and Chris was shooting and he had on a fog machine. And so the haze machine, in fact, was filling the entire space, and so everything looked flat. So I knew that in post-processing, in order to compensate, I'd have to add contrast and clarity. Now you can see the Centerfield split diopter, the letterbox diopter, how it is streaking out the edges of the frame, and I absolutely love this effect. All right, so what I did is in Capture 1, I went in and I popped the clarity. Ready? So this is in camera. This is what was done in Capture 1 without any retouching. Clarity and contrast made a huge difference, and then I added a little bit of a radial selection to her face, just brightened it up and increased the contrast even more, because originally I thought that there wasn't quite enough attention directed at the face. I was looking towards the edges of the frame a little bit. Then, as I analyzed this, there were a few things I wanted to clean up in Photoshop. For example, I wanted to get rid of the reflection of the strip softbox. You can see in the bottom left, I wanted to clean that up. I also thought the bottom of the frame looked a little dark. I wanted to lighten that up a little bit. And then on the right-hand side, I felt like it looked like she had no arm, like the shoulder was a little cut off, and I didn't like how the dress kind of stuck out there. It was really a distracting line. So what I did in Photoshop was just kind of clean everything up and smooth things out. And so the end result is a much more clean image, high contrast, and just really dramatic, really exaggerating the streak effect from the diopter. I really like the results that we achieved here because I love the color and the movement. The model was fantastic, as well as the creative in-camera effect that was achieved through the gels and the specialty filter. So if you want to see the gear that was used in the making of this image, be sure to check out the links in the description below or visit adorama.com. I have links to the strobes, the filters, the gels, and much more. And by the way, if you want an opportunity to shoot images like this and join me at one of my workshops, visit Learn with Lindsay and check out the events section. I host many intensive workshops every year and just a few abroad, so you'll definitely want to sign up for those right away. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this photo deconstruction. I will see you next time.